Possibly the best indicator that we're in a culture war is a story about rioting at Pride and police fighting with the Pride event in New York City. Meanwhile, they're actually spray painting the messages of Pride on the ground, and the FBI is flying the Pride flag, and embassies are flying the Black Lives Matter flag. You can see that there are elements of the establishment that are in favor of all of this messaging, and there are elements of the establishment that absolutely are not. So this is the story. Revelers, they call it, attack food vendor and clash with cops in Washington Square Park as peaceful Pride celebrations spiral into chaos in NYC's new crime hotspot. That's right. Washington Square Park is supposedly becoming this hotbed for crime. I gotta be honest, I don't actually believe it. Washington Square Park has always had people staying there really late. They party, they sit around, they smoke, they play music. That's what Washington Square Park is. Apparently, the people who live around it, which I guess are like millennials who are aging, are no longer appreciative of the raucous behavior that they once partook in and now want it to stop. So the police have enacted a curfew. So I'm not so convinced that Washington Square Park necessarily is a new crime hotspot so much as you could technically say that's true if you change the rules and set the curfew from midnight to 10 and a lot of people don't know or don't care, and then you get police coming in fighting with people. But let me slow down for a second and say this, and then we'll read the story. Pride. It's supposed to be this like big parade. It's supposed to be a big event, and it's celebratory, and it's supposed to be peaceful. Now, truth be told, it looks like this event mostly was peaceful. I know it's funny to say mostly peaceful riot, but this doesn't seem to have been a riot. There were some fights that broke out. The cops came in. Some people got pepper sprayed. It's hard to know exactly why all of this stuff happens, but it's not like people showed up with the intent of smashing windows. It's like people doing the cha-cha march around a fountain in the summer. I'm not going to pretend like this is the chaos and, Pride is burning on the city or anything like that. In fact, this apparently is the third year in a row something like this has happened. But what I find fascinating about this story and why I want to talk about it is the weird corporate support, but then establishment rejection. Let me put it this way. There's a couple things I'll add. There's a meme going around where it's like what Netflix thinks its audience wants. And it's like a video of a bunch of like strong masculine women and stuff. And then it says their actual audience. And it's a woman from this new dating show where she's like, I want to get married and have kids before 26. So it's the actual narrative that comes out in the content is much more what you'd expect. But their advertising for some reason is absolutely insane. You see this weird break? It's like there's some element that's pretending everybody cares about this, but in reality, no one really does. I'll give you a better example. I went to the skate park not too far from here the other day. And there's kids tagging, like vandalizing the property with Black Lives Matter. It's the weirdest thing to me. I'm like, imagine being so pro-establishment that you vandalize public property with like a message approved by Amazon.com. Imagine going to a skate park and some kid like runs up and he spray paints like Walmart.com and you're like, okay, I guess. I don't know if you're rebelling or not. I have no idea. They spray paint Black Lives Matter on the skate ramps, and I'm like, is that okay? Is it illegal? I don't know if it's illegal. I mean, they painted Black Lives Matter in the streets with taxpayer dollars, so I don't know if these kids are rebelling anymore or if they're like, yay, establishment, and then they run out and they're like, yay. So this is where it gets really funny when these people show up for this Pride event in New York, and it's like the most pro-establishment thing ever, and the cops show up, and I guess, you know what? Regardless of whether or not the establishment supports your ideas, now somebody attacked a food vendor, and it was kind of messed up. This is food vendor, and an argument breaks out, and these food vendors are like, just go, just leave us, please, just go. And then people, because they're in a violent mob, start throwing things. So it is fair to say that a riot does break out, but maybe like on a scale of 1 to 10, like 1 being like no riot at all, 10 being the worst possible riot, it's a 5. It's like right there at the threshold where people are surrounding a guy screaming, they're beating him, they're throwing things. It's not a scuffle, it's not a fight. They say revelers attack food vendor. I mean, when you get a group of people all there for an ideological reason and they're all freaking out and screaming at somebody and start throwing stuff at them and beating them, you're now in riot territory. You know what I mean? But I do want to be careful because I don't want to act like this is a new thing. The story apparently, like I said, the third year in a row this has happened. Here's the story from the Daily Mail. They say, New York City's Pride celebrations were marred Sunday evening after an attack on a food vendor and skirmishes with police who used pepper spray to regain control. I'm sorry, I think it's a Pride riot. It's getting in that territory. An elderly hot dog seller in the city's embattled Washington Square Park had a busted lip, bloody nose, and was seen bleeding from his head after being punched in the face several times by a woman. Why? People are crazy, man. The man was seen standing next to his food cart when he was suddenly caught off guard, punched in the head, and nearly knocked off his feet. As he attempted to flee, a group chased him before he finally fell into the street where police ran to his aid. A woman yelled at him, accusing him of using a slur. I really do not believe some dopey old hot dog vendor was spouting slurs at Pride events. I'm not going to buy it. These people, like the rioters, the element of the left, whatever this is. Look, there's photos from Pride. There's a bunch of people like doing the cha-cha march through a fountain. That's fine. That's great. It's summer. That's what people should be doing. I don't know who these people are who show up to these events and do this kind of thing, but it's like the Antifa people, the BLM extremist types. They say people then tended to him in the street following the beating late on Sunday night. Earlier in the evening, several people were arrested as simmering tensions between Pride goers and the police suddenly boiled over. NYPD officers used pepper spray on Pride attendees who were in the Greenwich Village Park early on Sunday after revelers got angry with how police responded to a break in the metal barricades surrounding the popular park. Well, you know what, man? The police set up barricades. You try to break them down, the police are going to come in. This shouldn't be surprising to anybody. Social media users described officers as shoving one of the broken barricades into a woman who was on the other side. I don't believe it. I'll tell you what I think happened, because I've been in New York. I've covered a lot of these protests. Here's my bet. The protesters, the rioters, started pulling apart the barricades, and the cops run up, grab it, and forcefully push it back, hitting somebody. It's one thing to say a cop went, and he grabs the barricade and hits people with it. It's another thing to be like, they started getting riotous and the police tried to stop them. You see how that works? They say Pride participants already were wary of any police presence following a confrontation in the same park at the same event last year. NYC Pride banned uniformed cops from any of its official events this year, and until at least 2025, over fears their presence would harm attendees. The decision came in the wake of George Floyd's murder. Riot police were then seen surrounding the area in riot gear, including shields, helmets, and visors. Some police officers had their batons out. Now, that's interesting. I've covered a ton of riot and protests in New York, and the cops usually don't have shields. No joke. Around the park's perimeter, officers formed a chain of police bikes before scores of them flooded the park. There were at least 3 confirmed arrests. You can see that part of the conflict arises because you had these guys, protesting, repent, obey Jesus, they say. Then you have these people like yelling at the cops or whatever, and the cops are like standing around. And this is what happens. So this is what you'll get when the people start tweeting about this. They're not going to tell you what started the fight. This person tweeted, cops trying to arrest folks outside Washington Square Parks. Yeah? Why? No, for real, why? I need to know, because maybe the cops just walked up to somebody and said, I've decided to arrest you for no reason. I really doubt that, but maybe. Or maybe someone threw a beer can or a water bottle, or maybe somebody punched somebody. Who knows? Maybe they were messing with the barricades. I don't see police just walking in. And you got to understand, like, I'll put it this way. These cops for New York, these are the ones who defended the Black Lives Matter mural in the street. So I don't see them as like being the same department is going to walk up and randomly just beat people at Pride. And here's what I was mentioning about doing like the cha-cha, whatever it's called. They're just like walking. This is great. I love it. This is fantastic. You guys, you got to the park. Everybody's celebrating. You're having some hot dogs. Maybe, you're dancing in the fountain. Summertime, a beautiful thing. America, this is what it's all about. Why y'all got to start fighting with people and beating people and attacking vendors? Like, that's dumb. Ignore the cops. There are other people who live in the city besides you that want to just get up and go get a Chipotle burrito or something. Quote, there's talk of mace happening right now at Washington Square Park. There is a sea of cops here. Quote, I am currently watching NYPD charge Washington Square Park with riot gear, potentially to break up Pride celebrations. Oh, come on, that's insane. It certainly looks like they're confronting people celebrating Pride from my vantage point. They call it celebrating Pride, but I wonder if it was just unpermitted, maybe. If the cops actually instigated this, then I'll say that it was bad. Somehow I just don't believe it. I really, really don't. The NYPD has attacked the Queer Liberation March, used pepper spray and arrested at least one person. Now they're out in force and riot gear threatening more arrests. This is why no cops at Pride. When Daily Mail asked comment from the NYPD over the use of pepper spray, an officer said that no official details had yet been relayed from the field. At least one person could be heard chanting through a megaphone, "The NYPD is not welcome at Pride," to encouraging cheers of those nearby. You know what I'm going to say? Yes, I agree with Pride. The cops, get them out of there. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not being facetious. I mean it literally. Probably for different reasons. They hate cops. They say cops are oppressive, all that stuff. I say, dude, the people have spoken. You've lost control. If you want to put Black Lives Matter in the street and send police to go defend it, when those same people tell you to F off, get on your knees and beg them for mercy and leave. You are the ones who created the circumstance. You are the department that created the lawlessness. You stood around. You didn't. I don't mean necessarily the individual beat cops. I mean the establishment. I'm talking about the Democratic politicians. I'm talking about the police chiefs, the higher ranking supervisors. You got on your knees for Black Lives Matter. Don't stop now, baby. These people are in charge. You got a problem with what they want? It's actually your problem, not theirs. How are you going to let the city burn, let the riots happen, do nothing to stop this, paint their message, and those cops come out and defend it and say, but I'm just doing my job. Okay. Well, you work for them. If the people don't want you there, get out. And if they want to fight and beat people, like, well, you know what? They've spoken, right? Look, maybe what'll happen is the vendors will stop showing up. There won't be any more hot dogs in Washington Square Park. The people won't want to live there anymore, so they'll be desperate to sell or move. Leases will be broken and people will leave. Let the city reap what they have sown. It's like we've got this big ship. And holes keep popping out. And you know, I'll put it this way. Here's a better analogy. It's like there's a big ship we're all on. And these leftists keep walking up with ice picks and bashing holes in the side of the hull. And then water is spraying out. And a bunch of people have tried to stop them for a long time, but it's been getting worse. Now, there's a certain sense of optimism in that they're sinking their own ship. And so we're like, whatever. But of course, they're going to try and jump ship and go to someone else's boat and probably do the same thing, right? At a certain point, you're like, dude, you've got millions of people punching holes in the hull of this ship. What are we supposed to do? If it's what they want, it's what they get. It's this simple. Don't let them jump onto your lifeboat. Say, hey, man, you do whatever you want with your boat. Here's what I'm trying to say. We've seen all of this with the police, where they, like, literally during the George Floyd protests, NYPD got on their knees. Why would I defend them now? Bro, if you've pledged fealty to the far left extremists when they're doing whatever they want, why would I come out and be like, oh no, the poor police? Like, I don't know. Like you bent the knee to them. You know what I mean? Like, so do what you're told and shut up and stop complaining. You want to stay in New York? You want to do that? I'm not playing any stupid games. I'm not going to defend you. After the NYPD got on their knees for the George Floyd rioters, as if I defend the NYPD. Sorry, you guys reap what you sow, and this is what you get. So look, the people of New York support this. The mayor supports this. Now they have the nerve to come out and complain. They're like, but the noise is too loud. Okay, maybe you, a New Yorker, should have said something when they were burning down buildings. Or in New York, it wasn't so bad, but smashing windows, the videos coming out where people are like running into buildings and just stealing everything. That's crazy. But too bad. People don't speak out. People don't want to speak out, but I'll lose my job, but I'm scared. Let me explain something very simple to all of you. That may be true. It may be scary. I'm sorry. But we are the majority. Most people do not want raucous reveling into the middle of the night and smashing windows and fighting with cops. Most people are not woke. It's amazing that you have 88% or 90% of this country, which is not woke, scared to speak up against this progressive fringe political minority. But they're scared. But I'll lose my job. Yeah, if everybody just laughed at them, you wouldn't lose your job. That's the problem. I hear it so much. I hear it a lot. People are like, oh, I'm really worried that if we come on your show, Tim, there could be some backlash or something. That's not really something I'll be honest. I don't want to exaggerate, what actually happens. But we've had maybe out of our 100, 200 and something guests, one or two have been concerned about potential backlash. And I'm like, first of all, we're kind of a moderate show. We don't really get that. But dude, nobody cares. I've had people talk about, one of the problems of building culture is that these big corporations are scared that if they don't bend the knee, they'll lose business. And I'm like, no. It's not that you'll lose business. It's that people are just scared of each other. It's a big Mexican standoff. There's very few woke people, but no one knows who's woke. So they're all standing there scared of each other like, I'm just going to do whatever I'm told. When in reality, most people, and when I say most, the Hidden Tribes survey found in 2018, it was 8% of the population. That's it. You see these videos? Check this out. Look at these photos of all these people in Washington Square Park. How many people they got there? A few thousand? A couple thousand? How many people live in New York City, in the metro, within train distance or driving distance? 10 million? I mean, I think 9 million city proper, right? Do the metro, do the tri-state. Why don't they show up for Pride? Because it is a tiny minority. So this is what happens. You get a mayor who will just spray paint that message and do stupid things, and regular people don't speak up. Now, a lot of people protested, and they threw paint, and they said, F this, F no. But most people just keep their head down, keep their heads down and say, if I just do nothing, it'll all get better. But in the past few years, the amount of people who are woke has been going up significantly because it is indoctrinating young people. If you don't speak up and say it's whack, then the establishment culture keeps telling, 7-year-olds it's cool. And then by the time they're 14, they go to skate parks and they're like, yo, I'm punk rock. Black Lives Matter. Spray painted on the ramp. And I was like, oh yeah, that's the thing I saw on Amazon.com. And they have that big sign at Walmart, big corporate Black Lives Matter ink spray painted all across the ramps. I love it. There's like someone took a paint marker and wrote BLM. And I'm like, you're not protesting anything, dude. You're espousing corporate messaging. That's what happens. These kids don't realize that they are the establishment. They're the machine, or they love being the machine because they didn't get a good punk rock message. Who was it? Was it Sid Vicious or was it Johnny Rotten? I'm thinking both probably would wear swastika t-shirts. Were they actually Nazis? No, but they wanted to offend you. They wanted to get in your face and tell you to shut up. That's what punk rock used to be. And then, in the 90s, it became about just like chain wallets, studded belts, and singing about your feelings, I guess. So good for you, punk rock. And a lot of these big punk bands, man, they're just so establishment now. I mean, not even necessarily punk. Like, take a look at Rage on Behalf of the Machine. We were at the mall the other day, and I go to Hot Topic, and they have like a big Rage Against the Machine. And I'm like, they ain't raging against anything, dude. They're raging on behalf of the machine. The things they say are repeated by Walmart. That's not very edgy of you. No, it's actually very square. That's where we're at these days. So I'll tell you this. Here's the point. How many people surrounding Washington Square Park did not like any of this? A lot. A lot of people didn't like any of it. How many of them were willing to go out, stand up and say no? None of them. They called the police and said, help, police. Someone else needs to do this because I won't. Ma'am, the police were the ones defending the Black Lives Matter mural in the street. Yeah, no one's going to come and help you. Here's what may end up happening. There's an interesting conundrum or sort of paradox in that property values should be going down because people are fleeing cities, but they're still actually going up. And, well, it's all in line with buying up property so millennials can't. Yeah, millennials are going to be a surf generation. They're going to be coming out to events like this. They're going to be reveling and dancing and drinking, and just nothing becomes accomplished. There's no freedom. There's no sense of security, but they don't care, I suppose. And I think the big reason there's a lot to blame. You look at the boomers, like the hippie generation, the hippies, man. Wow, what did they end up becoming? Leaders of industry, corporate, CEOs, incredible. That's the system they build. Right now, we're seeing something similar in these millennials are going to keep demanding of the system. But the system can't support this. You can't support a system where people don't produce. New York will probably fall. What I mean by that is, you've probably heard me mention about Detroit, like the water infrastructure, the piping, right? Plumbing. In order to maintain that, there's a set amount of money you need to have workers to actually fix the pipes. And that cost is divided up against most of the residents, plus the actual, water transfer costs. But as people leave due to things like this, then that cost share gets divided amongst all of the other people who live in the city. It's probably tens of millions of dollars per month to maintain this, which basically means everybody essentially spends $1 to keep the system going. But as more and more people leave, the cost of utilities will go up. The cost of building maintenance will go up. You'll see more and more buildings start falling apart, which will cause property values to collapse, which will cause people to flee areas due to a loss of their investment, which will eventually result in a downward spiral, an entropic decay of a city because it gets caught in that death spiral and it can't get out. It's something that happens to shopping malls. And this is a smaller scale version. Let's say you have a shopping mall with 150 storefronts. And all 150 are full. People like going there because they can window shop at all these different stores and there's so much to see. It's the bazaar. It's the festival. But then 10 of the stores end up leaving because, it turns out no one really likes fedoras. And, the 10 fedora shops that were there for some reason, they're gone. Well, now the fedora people are less interested in coming. But as long as you maintain a certain number of open stores, people still say, well, I'll go there. Here's what happened in Ferguson. Just to the west of Ferguson was a mall. And I went and we covered this story when I was, down there covering Ferguson. There were 70 empty storefronts out of just like 100 and something. And there were like 2 restaurants in the food court. The more stores shut down, the less anyone wanted to be there, the less customers would show up. And eventually it falls faster and faster and faster, like dominoes being knocked down. If there's only 10 stores in the mall, well, then people are going to be like, do I need to go to the GameStop at the mall? I guess I have to. And then they might impulse buy something at the other stores. The food court starts shutting down, then there's no food. Some people want to go see the movies, but then the movie's not pulling in anybody, so they stop going. And it all started. They told me that when the riots broke out during Ferguson, they had to shut the malls down because they were worried, and then people stopped coming. When people said, I don't want to go to the mall because it's going to be locked down, stores said, we're not making any money. There are loss leader stores. There are stores that only have like I don't know exactly which ones are, but there are certain stores that operate in malls that can't operate anywhere else. I think Lids might be one of them. I could be wrong. It's like a hat store. That's all it is. You only ever see it in malls because there's not going to be a standalone Lids somewhere because no one's going to go to it. But when you're at the mall and you're going to buy a new video game from GameStop, you might pop over to Lids, grab a hat. So eventually they start dropping out. Then there's no reason to walk around the mall. People stopped coming. It really was the riots that was the catalyst for this. And then the mall ended up dying. It was crazy. We walked around. It was creepy, actually, walking through corridors of this mall where there's just nothing. Empty storefronts. It's like being in an abandoned building. It was kind of cool. Kind of sad, though. Well, this is what you get in places like New York. So, I guess you could call it a riot to a small degree, but the people there have lost control. And this is what New York will be. Why would you want to own a condo in New York when your property value is going to go down? Crime is skyrocketing. The police are fighting with pride while defending Black Lives Matter murals. It's just bedlam. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.